So we're still talking about forces, and section 1.5 of your book talks about something called the equilibrium rule. And first we need to define what equilibrium is. Equilibrium is a condition in which no physical changes are occurring. It's a state of steadiness in terms of physics. And for a while we're going to be talking about a situation where we have a spring scale, and on that spring scale is hooked a bag of sugar. And once the bag of sugar is on the spring scale, it will get to a certain point and nothing else will happen to the sugar or to the scale, and that will be a state of equilibrium or steadiness. Now I've written down here, because we're going to be dealing with 2 pounds of sugar, that pounds, strange as it seems, are masses, just like newtons, and 1 pound is equal to 4.448 newtons. This is not something you need to memorize. This is just something I felt compelled to put down. Okay, so if you have the spring scale and you haven't attached anything to it, and you put the sugar on the spring scale. Okay, so we're going to attach the sugar. What's going to happen when you first attach the sugar to the scale? Okay, what happens then? Well, the sugar is going to make the spring inside the scale extend, and the sugar is going to pull down on that scale. And the sugar is going to begin pulling down on that scale and then stop, and it's going to be pulling down on the scale due to the force of gravity. Gravity is pulling that bag of sugar towards the earth. Okay, and what happens to the spring when the sugar is attached to it? Well, the spring in the scale stretches. Okay, the spring in the scale stretches, and that stretching force is called tension. So it exhibits tension. Okay, that tension is what is pulling up on the sugar at the same time. So we have the force of tension pulling up on the sugar, and the force of gravity pulling the sugar down towards the earth. And once this has reached equilibrium, the tension force and the gravitational force are the same. Okay, so we've got the sugar pulling down, so the spring is pulling up. That's tension. The sugar is being pulled down. Due to the force of gravity, and nothing is moving. Since nothing is moving, nothing is changing, that means the forces must be equal and opposite. Okay, we've already done this before, where we have forces canceling each other out. And that's exactly what they're doing here. So since they're equal and opposite, these forces cancel. Or they add up to 0. This is called the equilibrium rule. It's mentioned in your text on page 21. And the way this is written is the sum of the forces. This is a summation sign. It's a capital sigma. The sum of the forces is equal to 0. So that's the mathematical representation of the equilibrium rule, where sigma means the sum of. Okay, This must hold true for any objects at rest. So this is something I would box and be aware of, that when the sum of the forces is equal to 0, you are at equilibrium. If the sum of the forces is not at 0, one object is moving, but when it's not moving, you're at equilibrium.